Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Major League Baseball resumes on Friday following last night's All-Star game. In one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports, the Red Sox and Yankees are scheduled to meet at Fenway Park to kick off the second half of the season. Fenway Park is the nation's oldest Major League ballpark. It was built in 1912, and while it has undergone many renovations, it is still among the most recognized sports stadiums in the country. Prior to the All-Star break, Across the Fence had the opportunity to visit Fenway at the invitation of head groundskeeper David Meller. Meller spoke with UVM Extension horticulturalist Leonard Perry about what it takes to maintain the lush green grass of Fenway and how homeowners can employ some of the same techniques used at Fenway on their own lawns. Here's part of Leonard's conversation with the man in charge of the fabled Fenway Park.
So David, what's it like to come to work at this great ballpark, one of America's greatest, every day?
It's a dream. You know, I get goosebumps every day I walk out here. It's an honor to follow in Joe Mooney's footsteps and to work for such a wonderful organization. You know, ownership and support throughout the club is fantastic.
So it must vary with when the Sox are here versus when they're away, your hours, or you just come in every day and just work late and as needed?
Well, you know, we do whatever it takes. You know, the weather dictates a lot of our job too. So one of the first things I look at in the morning is weather. And one of the last things I look at before I go to sleep is weather. And we plan our days around weather, around extra events, and as far as when the team's in town too. You know, we're very fortunate to I have a great staff, and we also have a weather service we worked with that helps us be able to plan our days well too.
I don't know if you do like some growers I work with, and they check like 6 different forecasts and take the average and see because they never trust any one over the other.
I don't go to that extreme.
But yeah, you have a more reliable source there.
Certainly watch the weather very closely.
Yeah, I imagine, you know, and that'll dictate if you're mowing or not, I assume, and just what practice you're doing. And
absolutely,
and
you know, if there's different disease pressures and different areas we want to work on versus others.
Okay, well, how did you come about having such a dream job as this?
Well, you know, I dreamed of making it to the majors as a baseball player and was hit by a car and couldn't play anymore. And my family said to not dwell on what I couldn't do, but to focus on what I could. And I walked on crutches for 2.5 years, walked with a cane for 10 months, missed 3 years of college. And my family said I was actually lucky. I had an opportunity to really find what my passion is. And I decided, you know, I loved mowing grass, I love science, and I love baseball and being outside. So I thought, what job is that? And that's a groundskeeper in the major leagues. And for me, my job is the next best thing to playing. You know, I interned for the Milwaukee Brewers, California Angels, and the San Francisco Giants. I went to Ohio State, got a degree in landscape horticulture, and then also agronomy. And for me, it's literally the next best thing to playing.
I know I see a lot of, you mentioned these are some interns out here you have working during the season. You intern, I assume you'd recommend that for a student with a similar ideas that internships are important.
Internship gives you a real world opportunity to learn. And you know, what works in the textbook doesn't always work out on the field because of weather or making something safe and playable for the game. Then you come back and use the textbook and that background to fix things. But sometimes you have to fix and make it playable right now. And by having the interns here, they bring a passion with them. And I'm fortunate to have a great staff to go along with the interns. We
mentioned it's just so fun coming to work every day. What are, if you had to pick out 1 or 2 things you find most enjoyable, but about looking forward to when you come here?
Gosh, just being at Fenway Park. You know, I emulated, you know, Fred Lynn, Jim Rice, you know, Louis Tillon when I was playing wiffle ball and baseball growing up. The place I walk in and out of the stands the most, my father and brothers used to sit there when they were much younger, and my dad and my brother died. And so for me, it's very special for me to walk by those seats every day, multiple times, and just to soak in the ambiance of Fenway is very special.
Well, that's great. Well, it must be something that, you know, is a problem here or there, issues or challenges. So over the years you found were here, whether it's with the field, things you've had to change. Could you share any of that?
Well, I think in any problem, there's really an opportunity. You know, I think adversity makes us stronger and creates opportunities for us to learn from. You know, I certainly hope to learn from my mistakes, and it's something that, you know, we can all become better at. So any challenge that you're faced with, I think, is really an opportunity in disguise. And it's an opportunity to thrive and build on your success and learn from mistakes. So I don't look at something like, oh my gosh, we have a major problem here. I think it's an opportunity. And I'm fortunate to have a great staff and great support from upstairs to fix whatever challenge there is.
I know you've said in the past when you came here the drainage wasn't exactly right, and you had to fix that, so I guess you looked at that like here's an opportunity to really improve this, make this even a better field.
The last major renovation was done in 1934, and it was a soil-based field that had a big crown to it. And so certainly the technology now, not only do we have better irrigation and drainage and cultivars and everything like that, but we can have a safer field that drains down through. So ownership invested in a new field in 2004, and it's really helped in many different ways.
That's great. Now, you've got such a handle on the professional aspects, and you've actually written a book on the home lawns too. What would be a couple of key tips you'd recommend for home owners for their own lawns, problems you've seen, or opportunities, I should say?
Well, I think, one, they want to make sure they're cutting at the proper height. Many people mow too short, and they don't mow often enough. So in New England, you should be mowing between 2.5 and 3.5 inches high. The hotter it is, the higher you want to mow it. So the grass blades shade the soil down below. You want to make sure you're being smart with water. Obviously don't water if there's a water ban, but you want to water at the right time of day. During the day, the wind's going to affect it more, it's going to evaporate more, and if too many people water when they get home from work after a hot day, and the best time to water is between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. so that water is available to the plant come the next day when it gets hot. It's not going to evaporate as much. The winds aren't usually as strong at night. And so they can get timers for their hose. They can hook up their they can hook up their irrigation system through a satellite system, so that takes into consideration the weather forecast.
Wow.
And really helps program your system so you're not wasting water.
Well, this is just great to learn a bit about this and your background, and just appreciate so much a few minutes of your time and the Red Sox management for this chance to visit with you here today. And appreciate learning a little bit about the park and some home lawn tips too that hopefully some of our viewers can take home, get your books and read those too.
I'm glad you guys came down, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Well, hopefully we can be back. And thank you for watching today on Across the Fence. For University of Vermont Extension, I'm Leonard Perry.
We want to thank David Meller and his staff for hosting us, and in the days ahead, we'll have more of Leonard's interview from Fenway. Our next segment centers on an entrepreneur at the University of Vermont who's found that the best way to support farmers, curb pollution, and save a threatened species is with chocolate. Across the Fence's Rebecca Gollin has the story.
Charles Kerchner doesn't say the kinds of things you would expect to hear from a chocolatier. When talking about his growing chocolate company, he might say something like,
if you go into a room and you yell out carbon sequestration, I'm sure not many people's faces would be lit up and get very excited.
And if you ask him about how he got into the business, it would include this.
After my Peace Corps experience, came to the University of Vermont for a master's in applied economics, and then continued on to a PhD in forestry.
In other words, talking to Kerchner can make for some unexpected connections. For example, when Kerchner talks about his business, the link between carbon sequestration, economics, forestry, and chocolate is not immediately clear. But there is a connection between them, and that connection is for the birds.
There's been a unique partnership we've developed between land trusts in the Northeast, businessmen in the Dominican Republic, and actually investing in habitat to protect a migratory bird called the Bicknell's thrush. This bird flies every year thousands of miles from Vermont to the Dominican Republic, and overwinters in the Dominican Republic, returns to Vermont, Adirondacks in the Northeast for breeding season.
That's right. Kerchner makes chocolate to save birds. The roots of the project stretch back to the time he spent as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Dominican Republic.
So my assignment was to work with small-scale producers in chocolate production, so improving post-harvest fermenting and post-harvest production techniques.
Kerchner was stationed in a small village in the northeast mountainous region of the country, where he experienced the area's economic dependence on chocolate, as well as the biodiversity features that make the area, especially cacao farms, uniquely important to the Bicknell's thrush. As Kerchner neared the end of his service, he wanted a way to stay connected to the area.
I remember we were with a bunch of community members around me, and we were passing coconut trees and cacao trees, and thinking, wow, this would be really neat to bring this project full circle. So how neat would it be to work with the farmers in the Dominican Republic, but also make the chocolate and share that experience.
In the years since then, Kerchner has partnered with a number of people and organizations, from ornithologists at the Vermont Center for Eco-Studies to Dominican government and business representatives. He has also been working towards his PhD in forestry, which includes identifying cost-effective conservation areas. In the small amount of free time he has left, he's been perfecting his chocolate recipe.
Oh, the color's great. Yeah.
With cacao beans from a farming partner in the Dominican Republic.
Stop.
That brings us here, to the New World Commercial Kitchen and Bakery in Winooski.
When that melanger is going, you smell the chocolate outside. So we have people that will come in asking, where's the chocolate? Where's the chocolate?
Metivier works with a variety of small producers, and with her husband, has a line of salsas and drink mixes. Like Kerchner, she knows about getting a small business off the ground.
You know, when you're starting out in your own home and you're in a stock pot and one pot makes 12 jars, and then you go to 20-gallon steam kettles, you know, where you're making 10 to 20 cases, you know, at a whack. That's a big difference.
Metivier rents this space to producers like Kerchner by the hour. She also helps companies to make, package, and develop their products. The business is expanding. The kitchen stays busy through word of mouth. Kerchner found them when he needed a new place to work on his recipe.
When I returned to the U.S., I started tinkering with chocolate making in my house, and my wife finally kicked me out of the kitchen. What they do is they crack open those pods, and then out come the beans. They usually take them by mule.
Most chocolate makers start with chocolate that has already been partially processed. His partnership with the cacao farmers means that Kerchner gets the beans at an earlier stage, which allows him to play a much larger part in how his beans are processed.
What we do is we take the beans after they've been grown and then are fermented and dried, and then ship them here to the U.S. And then we go through a long process of sorting through those beans, roasting them, grinding them, winnowing them, and then putting them into a melanger, which is a granite wheel system that essentially takes the nib form and brings it down to liqueur. And then we temper, pack it, and sell it.
Making chocolate Kerchner's way is quite a process, but it's a labor of love that Kerchner says preserves the distinct notes of cherry and citrus that are unique to his blend.
It's kind of like a farm to table on an international level. You know, I mean,
Matt Byrong owns Three Squares Cafe in Virgin. A longtime friend of Kerchner's, Byrong is now also a business partner. He's working with Kerchner to develop the chocolate.
I mean, if you told me a year ago I was going to be involved with, like, you know, a 1,000-acre cacao farm in the Dominican Republic with half of it being habitat preservation for an endangered Bicknell's thrush, I would have told you you're out of your mind. But here we are having this conversation.
The two have spent countless hours in the kitchen.
At this point, I'm kind of an aspiring Willy Wonka. I am processing the beans that come to us from the farm. They get to me fermented and dried. So we do the roasting, the cleaning, the processing into the base chocolate, and finally the tempering and molding them into bars for resale.
The bars are sold locally in Burlington and Winooski, and Byrong is also experimenting with the chocolate as an ingredient. He uses it in the usual places, such as pastries and hot drinks, but also in some more unusual recipes.
We're integrating it in with specials right now. We've been messing around with a few different mole recipes. We've been using it in some stews. It's become a part of our base recipe for our various chilies.
Reaction to both the chocolate and the project has been positive. In Vermont, where the chocolate is being sold, as well as in the Dominican Republic, where the farm that Kerchner works with has been designated as a land reserve.
The idea is that we're not just trading a commodity, and you're not just eating a commodity, that it is more connection to place and connection to food and products that you can consume, and you're not just eating them, you're understanding where they come from and you get to know the farmers. Not everybody can go to the Dominican Republic and have the same experience I had. They can at least partake in it by eating fantastic chocolate.
Helping to make the world a better place by making chocolate. Charles Kerchner has his recipe for success. In Winooski, I'm Rebecca Gullen with Across the Fence.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.
For a video copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-ATF-3430. Across the Fence is brought to you as a public service by University of Vermont Extension and WCAX-TV.